Pete's Lake Campground and Recreation Area is located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, almost dead south of Munising. As you approach down the paved road, you see a typical recreation area sign that is very large and it's easy to spot. And then as we head into the recreation area, the first thing you come up to is a fairly large parking area that was also surprisingly empty on the day that I visited. It's only September, and I was super surprised to see that there was no one at the day use area except the campground host who's cleaning the restroom. First thing we come up to here is a billboard with a map of the Bruno's Run Trail, which is a 9-mile trail for hiking, biking, cross-country skiing, and snowshoeing. Keep in mind, horses are not allowed on the trail. And then once we get past the signage here, we're going to head right down to Pete's Lake itself, where you can see it's a nice, large, spacious area that has paved trails and several benches and picnic tables lakeside by the beach. We're going to follow the trail here, and it eventually comes out to a fishing pier where anglers can stand and fish, or you can just sit down and relax because it's really a beautiful, calm lake, and the water is nice and clear. So we're going to walk up to this here, we'll take a look out over the water, and then eventually I'll come back and I will launch the drone. There's a ramp here for handicap access, but behind me there are also steps for anybody that likes the challenge of climbing up and down. The pier is in decent shape. There's definitely some age to it, but it's not anything that's going to cause issues for anybody that needs to have a wheelchair accessible ramp. You can see the seagulls sitting out there just loving picking at the little minnows in the lake. Lots of minnows down there. I didn't see any large fish. According to the campers here at Pete's Lake Campground, it is not uncommon to hook yourself a decent Northern Pike, some bass, walleye, and even some pretty decent-sized Yellow Perch out here on the lake. But of course, nobody wanted to talk about the hot spots here in the water. You can see the lake is fairly large, not a whole lot of wind today, but the water is nice and calm. And looking back here at the recreation area, there is a spot for swimming that is marked off so boaters and swimmers don't have to interact. Somebody here has taken some time to plant a nice little wildlife area, and look, it's working. There is a monarch caterpillar on the milkweed plant. So whoever planted this, your efforts have not gone unnoticed, and you are definitely helping reestablish the monarch butterfly population. There is a nice paved trail from the recreation area to the campground itself, and I'm going to take a little hike down this until I get to the campground. It's really quiet here. Like, I'm sure people are camping, but I can't hear anybody. Once we're back out on the main road, there is a divide here for people coming and going from the campground, which makes it seem like it's a super busy road. However, it wasn't. And right off the bat, we come up here to a large site. There are, at this campground, group sites, lakeside sites, and then just regular sites. And we're going to check out the billboard because that's what I walked up to next. And you can see there's 2 loops here, and the sites are fairly close together, but they're all really large sites. There's about 46 sites on this map, but there's also some sites that are off of this map that are rustic sites. Depending on what sites you get, there's different fees. You can expect to pay anywhere from $22 to $38 depending on where you end up camping. And most of the sites are reservable. This campground does have a campground host located in site number 3A, which is a lakeside site. And right across you do have your first set of outhouses that are here in the campground that are not part of the recreation area. I'm going to walk through and scan over some of the campsites here so you can see just how large they are. And there are markings throughout the campground for the Bruno's Run Trail. It's going to show you right where you're at on the trail and on the campground, and you can see just how many lakes this wanders by. There are a whole bunch of lakes that wander through here, so we're going to jump off onto the trail really quick. and we're going to take a look at some of the out of the campground sites. These are rustic sites. They do not have any water. They do not have outhouses near them. You're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. You have to carry your gear in and carry your gear out. I'm not going to take a look at all of them or get super close to the ones that have people occupying them for their privacy, but you can see that it's kind of a winding trail that goes down through here. This one is one of the more remote trails. In fact, I didn't think I was even on the trail as I was trying to find this rustic campsite, but sure as heck I did eventually come up to it. They even had to lay down some boards to help keep your feet dry as you walk through a swampy area, heading back into this thick spot before you break out to a really nice site location right here on the water. You can't even hear the campground noise from this spot. It is so far out. It's just nice, quiet, and peaceful, but it is a hike in. Anybody that's a backpacker would certainly be used to this, but your average Joe probably isn't used to carrying their great big family tent out this far, so make sure you keep that in mind when you're choosing these rustic spots. It'd be a great spot if you have a canoe or a couple kayaks you wanted to bring in and launch out into the water, because you can canoe right up to your campsite. We're going to keep walking through the campground now, and we will check out more of the campsites. Some of the campsites are actually pull-through sites, which is great for people like me who can't back up a trailer to save their life. And some of the sites are just back-in ones for those who are expert level. You can see the site pads themselves are not paved, but they do have gravel laid down, so keep that in mind if you're a tent camper coming here. If you choose one of the regular sites, you're going to have a rough ground. If you don't bring a pad, you're going to definitely want to sleep on something more than just this gravel. Take a look at how deep this campsite is. This camper backed in this great big trailer, and they still have room if they wanted for another one in front of it, plus a whole campsite off to the side. This one's the same way. These are just really, really large sites. The map at the campground opening makes it look like all of these campsites are just packed on top of one another, but they're not. They're really quite spacious, and once you're back in your campsite, you don't hardly even notice that there's other campers in the area. Look at how big this campsite is and one little tiny tent. You gotta hope that at least they have 2 or 3 vehicles or a boat they're hauling with them to justify these big sites. And for the price, it's really quite excellent. I'm gonna fly out over the lake here and we'll take a look around. This really was a good campsite. Like I said, it's nice and quiet, beautiful setup. Normally I wouldn't go to these kind of campsites. I want a much more rustic experience, but this one really was worth staying at.